Welcome back to a new video on asynchronous programming in F#. What we saw in the last video was the following code example where we had this mail processor that we were able to run and we were able to post messages. So let me just execute so we can see where we left off. Okay, what we can see when we execute this is that we get a received message that says hi, and if I just execute this last part a number of times, you can see that every time that we send this, we're able to get the word hi received in our mail processor. If you're not familiar with what we did last video, please check that one out before looking at this one. What I want to focus on now is row number 5 here. So we took a lot for granted in the last video. One of the statements that I just went over briefly without really explaining is the fact that we used do keyword here instead of do bang. So we introduced in a previous video this version of the do argument, the do bang with the exclamation mark at the end. And I told you that this is in general what we use when we talk about asynchronous computations. You can see that when I add this here, actually this code starts throwing an error. And if I remove it, we can see that everything works. Like this is what we had the last time. So why does this happen? We are in an asynchronous block, as you can see here. Why do we not use the do bang keyword in this context? The reason for that is we only use the do bang keyword when we return, or when the do expression returns an asynchronous computation. Now, we are in an asynchronous block here, but here we are simply printing a string that we already received. This is not asynchronous in nature. We are in an asynchronous block, but as soon as we enter line 5, we can already execute this immediately. In contrast to that, when we would put a do bang is when we need to execute something that we have to wait for. So just to illustrate how that shows up in practice, let me copy what we have here and I'll give you an example of when we would use the do bang keyword in this context. So we will simply print here that we invoke the method first, and then after that we will print the message string that we got, but in between here I would actually sleep. So I would use do bang and then async dot sleep. And this one we saw in the last video, the implementation of, or 2 videos ago. And let's say I sleep for 3 seconds, like that. If I execute this now, I want you to pay attention to what happens. First, we're going to print the invoke keyword. Then we're going to wait 3 seconds, and then you're going to see that we print the message that was received. In this case, hi. And as you can see from the syntax here, we've printed this now or written the code and we don't get an error. And actually I will be able to execute this and not get an error. So the key thing I want to highlight is this do bang. We use it here on the async sleep because this is itself an asynchronous expression. None of these two are asynchronous expressions, even though they appear within an async computational block. So let me just execute this and you can see that it also runs. So you can see here we got the invoked keyword. Then it took a while, we waited 3 seconds, and then we printed received hi. So you can see that the code executed as we expected, and that is essentially the difference between when you want to use the do bang keyword and when you want to use the do keyword without the bang.